if you're starting a business because you think the lifestyle is going to be good, it's just the wrong. Your head is completely. It's not the right motivation. So I'm a lifestyle-driven person, but that wasn't why I started business. I started business because I was passionate about what I was selling, which is coffee and breakfast, lunch. Really passionate about people and hospitality. I love welcoming people and creating great environments. So you have to make sure that the motives are right. So as I said before, like I cleaned the toilets for 2 years every day, or maybe not 2 years, but like a year at least. I couldn't afford to have staff help me close. Like that's 2 hours of closing time to clean. I couldn't afford that. So ask yourself, will you do that? Will you clean your toilets if you open a cafe?
Let's just go and see the world and just show them what it really means to live life golden. Yeah, we're golden, baby girl, we're golden. Yeah.
Julien Moussi, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about the businesses you run. I apologise for Noah in the background, guys. He's running amok.
It's very cute, at least.
I'll let you introduce your businesses and tell everyone a little bit about what you do, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, cool. So, Only Hospitality Group and Inglewood Coffee Roasters are our businesses. Opened up our first store, first cafe. Been breakfast, lunch, and coffee focused. Opened in 2012. But before that though, I started in coffee carts, and so just saved enough money from there to open my first store. And since that, opened about 26, 27 stores, as well as a roastery, and probably sold about 9 or 10 off. But we're holders now and trying to just grow the portfolio. That's sort of, so we've got about 300 staff now. And just trying to grow the business as quickly and as smartly as possible. Not obviously taking on risk. You have to take on risk to grow, but just trying to be as calculated and careful as possible. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you breeze through that pretty quickly, right? But I think 27 stores, across how many years? What
would be 9 years now?
Yeah.
9 years. Yeah. But a lot. There'd be probably 12 in the last sort of. 12 to 18 months. So during COVID, we had some luck that go away during COVID, all like in a difficult time. Some of it hurt, but I feel I've read something really early saying never waste a good crisis. So that's sort of what I really it really stuck in my mind. I'd really want to take the opportunity to get ahead when people are scared and staying still.
It's the best time to start a business.
Yeah.
When the chips are down, and especially economics 101, right? That during a recession and these kind of things, if you can get a business and you can just hold the fort during those tough times, that you're going to probably have some good years ahead and be able to get on the back of that economic growth. So definitely that's something we did as well. We started to look at what are the opportunities now, And I think this is also and we're probably going to talk about this later, but why cash flow is so important, because when those chips are down, can you take those opportunities?
Exactly.
You need capital to do so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 27 stores and something that I think is pretty impressive is the fact that it's not like we're talking about a franchise here. They're different individual brands underneath, obviously the only umbrella brand and so on. And I think that's impressive, but I think it also talks to the fact that there's probably a method to the madness. Yeah, if that makes sense.
So the new the separate brands I think was important because of the coffee. There's a bit of a wanky perception, or there's I think that people in Melbourne particularly like to support the independent brand. Chains like, for example, Starbucks didn't go well in Melbourne or in Australia really as a whole compared to the rest of the world. And it's just because we've got a really sophisticated coffee drinker and breakfast, lunch. We've got, I think, done a bit of travel and Melbourne's the best cafes in the world. Hands down, best coffee. We do it the best, definitely. Which comes with, some advantages and some, it also makes things hard from a hospitality operator. But, the independent brand sort of tactic was really important to our growth.
It's very interesting, right? Like I remember traveling to New York, and the only cafe I would actually stop at were the Aussie cafes.
That's it.
Just because the coffee, it's the only coffee you can drink
trusted
over there.
Yeah, you can trust. Yeah,
food as well. But what I think we move to now is I'd love to hear a little bit about how it all started, and what was kind of the starting point.
Yeah, so I was a personal trainer, Monday to Friday. I'd worked a little bit in cafes in Canberra, and also for my old man in his restaurant. I learned how to make coffee in my dad's restaurant when I was like 17. But then I went to Canberra for a year and worked in a cafe, and I started really liking working hospitality there a little bit. And then I did my PT course. I was studying business at uni, but I dropped out. I was wasn't very academic, couldn't sit still. So dropped out of uni, did my PT course, did personal training during the week, and then on weekends I did my knee playing. I don't like talking about football because people always give me shit about bringing this story up. But I was playing footy and did my knee, and I asked my year out. I asked the general manager Andrew Purchin at Box Hill if I could make coffees at the footy ground and at Box Hill City Oval, and that went really well. And then from there, I ended up doing little athletics complexes, boat shows, EFL footy grounds, junior finals, and went really well. So I'd be playing footy after I recovered my knee. I'd be playing footy at East Ringwood, and had people making coffee on the side as well. So got a little pooch next to me, and that went really well. Saved some coin, about 30 or 40 grand, a small amount of money to open a cafe. But back then. Now it's not possible, and then that's sort of how it got going. So PT during the week, coffee carts on weekends, and then moved into the cafes.
How did you go at the beginning? I mean, obviously looking back now and seeing how far it's all come.
Yeah.
At the time, I'm sure it wouldn't have always been that way, right? It would have been, you would have had to deal with different people.
Definitely.
And coffee carts, right? It's like there would have been and obviously coming off an injury, right? Like a different identity crisis. Yeah,
for sure. And like, I was selling candy to kids. Like I literally was like, so I had the canteen rights at Duncan McKinnon, and I'm selling literally snakes to
chuck him on the floor. Chuck him on the floor. Chuck him on the floor.
Come on, buddy. Off you go. He's nibbling on my jeans.
Just chuck him on the floor.
Anyway, so I was literally selling like snakes and muffins, confectionery to kids at the canteen after their 100-metre sprint. So but I know it's pretty wild. If you think of it like on the surface, but I learned really good fundamentals. I had a cost price and I had a retail price. I figured out my margins, my profitability, overheads, and really the fundamentals of that is really the basis and the foundation of where we are today. Nothing's really changed. Obviously, there's a bit of a different scale, but and we've got some more overheads now, but it literally is the same. It's very simple maths from the back end, and as long as you're reviewing those numbers frequently, weekly we do, then it puts you in a really good position to make moves quickly and decisions quickly.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and just talking about how simple you can really see business when you start looking at it through the lens of numbers.
Yep.
And understanding the different kind of core metrics that you track, what's obviously looking at things such as marketing spend, cost of acquisition.
Yep.
And then I would imagine it's a little bit different in hospitality, but, but just understanding your numbers, profitability, gross margins, these kind of things. And then I'm sure that's what has factored into your method,
definitely,
and why you've been able to scale really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there's bleeds can happen very quickly in hospitality venues. Labour's obviously the biggest overhead, and we always talk to the staff about making sure that people are signing off, within a 15-minute period of their set sign-offs, and 15 minutes over 16 or so venues at the moment, if it's every day, can be really, really costly if you look at it on an annual basis. So just making sure that you empower the staff and let them understand what the annual cost would be if they slip that 15 minutes every day. Those sort of disciplines are really important to growth, and it really comes down to empowering staff with knowledge and making sure they understand it, because if they don't understand it and that there's no buy-in from them, then that's where bleeds can happen. And same goes with wastage and people thinking they can have, go to the pantry kind of thing and take something that's sort of, that's been paid for. Really aren't making sure there's no entitlement in the venues has been something that our culture has really focused on since the day one. There's no sense of entitlement. People understand that things cost money, and the ones that really buy into that culture are the ones that have really progressed really quickly in our business.
How do you deal with that dichotomy, right? Of being a leader that is empowering someone versus obviously setting the rules and managing performance? Because I know that's something that I've had a conversation with, but even something growing a business, it's, knowing that line, right?
Yeah.
Where too hard is too much and your staff don't want to work for you and these kind of things compared to, being a great leader and driving that culture.
Yeah, I suppose I think being really comfortable in your own skin and backing yourself in, and also doing things that you say. So I never ask staff to do anything that I wouldn't do or haven't done. Mm-hmm. I'm really big on that. For example, cleaning toilets, things like that. I used to clean the toilets every day for a year or two in my first couple of venues. I couldn't afford to have staff stay back and help me clean. So I know I've done that, and so if you have a staff member on their first day, half and puff about cleaning the toilets, then you know they're not the right person for you. And that happens. We have those young staff that think that they're above cleaning toilets. And that's, to us, is a real culture. I think for us, we've got everyone, nothing is below us. And in terms of the hard line and balancing it, I think there's a really big difference between being friendly with people and being friends with people and staff. And don't get me wrong, I'm great friends with a lot of our staff, the ones that I know really well. But I make sure that everything's respectful, of course, always. But everyone understands that you've got a job to do, and I think if you show that passion, that care, ultimately people understand that you're trying to do the right thing for everyone, and that's to help to create opportunities. And to create opportunities, you need to have discipline. So.
Yeah, I mean, it is such an interesting dichotomy, but I really like what you said there around filling your own space and developing yourself, and I think that's a part of it, and I think that comes with that experience that you do get from obviously having skin in the game, right? So you've obviously done a lot of those things, but I think it also talks to probably one of the hardest things in business and is hiring and more importantly, losing staff and so on, or hiring the wrong person. It's probably the biggest cost, right? Of course. It's so I think it definitely talks to that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Hiring the wrong person can be very costly. And when there was cash around, there's things like theft and all that you've got to be careful of, and making sure you're a realist and understand that people, when tempted, a certain person might steal, and so there's all those sort of elements as well. So you've got to be really careful, but thankfully more people are good rather than bad. You also got to try to make sure that you don't fight what. I heard Les Sherrado in a podcast recently saying, the head of Victoria Coffee, he said, don't fight what God left behind for the person. There's innate qualities and innate abilities in people, and if they don't have it as a person, don't fight it. It is what it is, and so you've got to try to identify the person really quickly so that you don't waste your time and waste other people's time.
Do you think that's a factor that has probably played into your ability to do as well as what you have, in terms of, obviously 27 locations is a lot, right? Do you think that that's something that can be overlooked often in business, but more so hospitality as well?
Do you mean as in being able to identify
that right person?
Yeah, I think I'm a good judge of character, and I think that sometimes I get trapped into getting seduced by people and people's personalities. I think everyone's guilty of that, but sometimes you need to sort of you need to nearly go through that 1 minute or 2 minutes of awkward conversation or fierce conversation. Be like, stuff it. I've got to have this conversation. Just call it out. I'm calling bullshit here. This person. Because people can really piss in your back and tell you it's raining, and you can get sucked into believing it. And you got those people who tell you what you want to hear, and sometimes you get trapped into just going down that cycle. That you keep just going down. It's like, hang on a minute, I've got to snap out. This is absolute crap. That's not what's happening. I know that they are talking shit. And then you have to build the courage up to say, nah.
Yeah.
This is not true. Stop telling me what I want to hear. I want to know the truth. I want to know improvement areas. I don't want to know that everything's perfect every day, because it's just not possible. So those sort of conversations I have a bit, but I have to remind myself that snap out of it. You're getting sucked in. So
I think how you deal with that situation as well, right? I think that's also what makes a great leader. Yep. I can look back at times where I probably haven't dealt with situations the best, and then sometimes where I have, right? And I think that's probably something that having the courage to call it out, and then knowing the process of actually calling it out, and because you don't want to put that person down, right? But you want to get the best out of the situation, and understanding how to manage that situation sometimes can be really difficult.
Definitely, and I think a lot of it comes down to trust. Obviously trust is an earned right, not a given right. And I think once the staff member feels that they have your trust, sometimes they can feel that they can be honest and say that, this is what's happening and this is the truth, but they're comfortable in their own skin to say, look, I want to improve it, and not have that anxious sort of feeling they have to tell me what I want to hear, but tell me what's happening so we can fix it together. And so I definitely take responsibility that you've got to reflect inward on those sort of situations as well and say, well, maybe I'm the reason why they're not telling me the truth, because there might be a bit of, intimidation. Or I truly try not to be intimidated, but as you know, like even in the sporting arena, like when you play footy and stuff, like with coaches, you used to get something, always the coach, even if you got along them well, I used to always feel a bit uncomfortable around them, and I look back now, I'm like, oh my God, you idiot. Like it wasn't, just be yourself kind of thing, but it's human nature. It always takes that, there needs to be a level of comfort, I think, for people to express themselves honestly. So that's something I've got to acknowledge as well and work on that so that people will give me the accurate info.
Yeah, I think, it kind of talks to the need for a good culture as well, right? Because that culture where you can communicate and you feel okay, saying I made a mistake, I did this. I think that's something that is obviously really, really important.
Definitely. Yeah, culture's number one. Like you can't succeed without a great culture, I reckon. Well, you can succeed to a point, but ultimately the culture will decide how far things can go and how much efficiency and productivity you can get out of the team. And obviously have fun together.
What do you do to build culture then? Like, what are some of the things that you do within the team? Because you obviously have, I would imagine scaling culture is difficult, right? Like at the level of, I think you said 300 staff?
Yeah, approximately 300.
So scaling, how do you view culture, and what are some of the things that you implement?
I suppose making sure that I'm seen to be doing the right thing and working really hard is obviously a really important one, because you can't just be seen to be, I don't reckon, kicking back and doing things against what you're trying to promote. But investing in relationships, obviously I could be better. Like sometimes I walk into a room and I'm in the zone and I don't acknowledge people how I should, and that's not what I'm about. And I used to be really, really great at, I still think I am, but I go through these bad stages where I walk in a room on my phone or I'm in the zone and I don't even say hi to people, and it's really bad. And I know that's really bad for culture. But at the very start, I knew that I used to always make sure I knew everyone's name. It's hard to know everyone's names now, to be honest. And I feel down about that sometimes, but it's just a reality. And if I keep thinking that I'm not going to know everyone's name all the time, it's probably just going to give me too much anxiety. So, but try my hardest to invest in relationships and build rapport. It's really important. And like I play tennis with the staff, on weeknights. Sometimes I catch up with staff for coffees, or have a spontaneous beer with them, or I'll go up to them and ask them about their families, whatever it is. But I really try to do spontaneous, random things with the staff that people go, oh, that's like I have a skate. I skated with one of the staff recently and bought a skateboard. Like just do little things like that. People go, what the hell? Like you do that, or you'll do, which might surprise people. But I'm just a normal knockabout bloke that I like building relationships and having friendships. So I think making sure that you're not above anything or not below anything, like just trying to get on a level with everyone. And look, we have staff parties twice a year where we spend a significant amount of money on staff entertainment and having fun. So things like that all matter. I think making sure that staff know that you want to be around them is really important.
I mean, I don't know, I kind of looking at it from an outsider's perspective, but I would imagine you have great management in place as well, which allows you to do those things, if that makes sense.
We've got a great team, yeah, absolutely. I can't take all the credit. We've got a fantastic team. From our COOs, front of house, back of house, our CFO, my wife Christy Lee, who heads up all our projects. To all our venue managers, like it just keeps going and going. We've got an amazing crew. People like, it's hospitality. No industry is easy. Let's face it. And human resource is obviously the hardest thing in any business. And many hands make light work. And if you've got everyone galvanised and working on the same path and in the same direction, it seems to make life easier. Yeah,
it's awesome. I think. I would imagine that just as you scale, your ability to create that culture, and I've been lucky enough to speak to we had a chat to Al Roseby from Country Road.
Yeah, right.
And
I did say that. Yes,
she was very similar, right?
Yeah.
Like as you scale, your role starts to change a bit.
Of course.
And having that management in place is really important. The people, that support network for you as a leader that allows you to go and do those kind of
definitely
the leadership skills and so
and
on.
empowering people. And we made a decision to ban perfection in the workplace, and it's pretty bizarre. But I heard I think it was the old Bunnings CEO said that perfectionists stunt growth, and they focus on these little finer details, but they're missing the big picture. And you have to make mistakes to get better. You can't have a perfect environment. You just can't. Now you have to have a good culture to be able to say, let's ban perfection, because then people can take the piss and take shortcuts, and then before you know it, people are starting to use it as an excuse for poor performance. So you need to have a great culture, but banning perfection is something that we really started. That was the mentality we took on about 5 years ago. I'm not afraid to say that.
So you did it before Richmond?
Hey, is that what they said, did they?
No, well, I mean, I'm a big Richmond guy, and they attribute a lot of their success. I don't know if you've heard him speak, but Ben Crow.
I've heard of this bloke. I haven't listened, but I've heard there's someone who's
vulnerability, imperfection type thing.
Yeah, right.
Allowing people to do what they do really well because they're not afraid to make mistakes.
That's it. I just think that if you have this uptight culture where people are shitting themselves and making a mistake, it's gonna be people aren't gonna be at the optimum level, at their best. So I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. I make so many mistakes. I've got so many weaknesses and some bizarre weaknesses where I really should be better at things, but you can't win it all. I know I've got strengths. You try to focus on people's strengths. Like focusing on some staff are terrible administratively, and they're fantastic in operations, and then you've got the complete flip side. So you should let people flourish and focus on strengths, And as I said, banning perfection is really, really important to, I think, growing businesses and growing in any environment.
100%. So back in the early days then, right, what were some of the strategies that you maybe did that you seen other people weren't maybe capitalizing on, or just some strategies in general that you kind of look at and go, that really helped us accelerate what we're doing?
A couple of things. So I think, look, we review our numbers every week. I think hospitality businesses are very guilty of being poorly run and not valuing the dollar enough and making decisions based on image and perception than pure fundamentals of business. And I refer to it as irresponsible business. And that's why you get people underpaying staff and you get people not paying the tax man. It's because they make silly decisions for ego as opposed to just being a good, strong, fundamental business person. You got responsibility. So we review things weekly. We have numbers and targets that we have to reach in every venue every week, and we get those numbers. We've got 3 staff. We've got 3 analysts, full-time staff in the Philippines who help with our data. Because it's quite a tedious job, and that's why we sort of have them offshore, but they're still part of the office. They're in the office virtually on screens every day, which has been really great for us. So we've obviously got about 4 guys in finance in our office, and then 3 in Philippines. So doing those reviews have been fantastic. So that's people who don't do that sort of stuff in hospitality. That's why I reckon we've grown quicker than and predominantly felt self-funded, most of it, or business funded. From cash flow, and the other one was
so that was is that 7 staff purely on the financials?
Yes, about 7 staff purely on the
amazing.
financials. Yeah, it's so important. Well, it's the number. Yeah. If you don't have cash flow and you don't have profitability, then you can't. There's no room to grow, I suppose.
Yeah. It emphasizes that you said self-funded or business funded.
Yes. So that's right. So most of our growth has come from business cash flow. See you, buddy. Off you go. Keep nibbling on my jeans. Some definitely is lending, of course. The other one is you don't ask, you don't get. So always ask the question of things, whether it's whether you want to learn something new or you don't know the answer to something. Ask. And some people don't ask these questions. It might be something to do with construction or whatever, and you might look silly for asking the question, but that's what with the environment we want when people are asking, being empowered with knowledge. So a culture like that, I think having that culture is really important. Has been really important for our growth, and building great relationships and networks. As I said, some of our growth has come from funding. Don't get me wrong. So, making sure you have a strong network to allow to have those people in the background who can help you, raise capital and keep growing is really important. Stuff like that's helped us beat competitors, I suppose, to more sites and better sites.
Yeah, I mean, the network one is, I reckon that's the game. Fundamentally, like just as an individual, your network really dictates what the opportunities you get, the opportunities you hear about.
For sure.
It helps you develop as an individual. If you're not surrounding yourself with leaders, you're probably gonna struggle to understand what leadership traits that you need and so on.
Definitely, and so many people are guilty of just staying in their bubble. Like I've got friends who, I went to St. Kevin's, and this private school mentality where people just stay in their network and they don't get out of their bubble. And I'm not that person. And so, like for example, I went to Canberra when I was 19 and lived there for a year. I met I've got two of my closest friends I met in Canberra who I see every day now. They're country boys from Yarram. I've got, I love putting myself out there. And then, I played footy at East Ringwood. I didn't go to just to St. Kevin's. I always played footy. I got out of my bubble, and from that, I've learned to know. I've met so many great people, and people that keep your feet in the ground. They don't tell you what you want to hear. The two blokes I met in Canberra, the Underwood brothers, they're like the Bash brothers, and they really taught me how to. They really. Opened my eyes to they're a little bit older than me. I'm not a lot older, but a little bit older enough to sort of knock me across the head if I was being an idiot, kind of thing. And I feel like having those relationships in my life have really helped me network. Get out of my comfort zone, not being sort of like insular and only thinking about staying in my bubble, like putting yourself out there. Being in uncomfortable environments. That's how you're going to ultimately learn new things and meet new people. So, yeah, I think that's important.
I mean, it's definitely. I think myself coming from the fitness industry, it's very easy to get caught up in those kind of bubbles as well. I'm sure for yourself, like you probably learn a lot from people that aren't in the hospitality industry, as well as obviously people that are. So that's definitely something that I can attribute to my growth, is something that is like, okay, well, there's a bigger world out there, and only once you start to see what that world can give, and what people are doing and these kind of things, can you start to potentially grow and start to develop to those levels.
Definitely.
So, I'm interested. So I was reading and I seen that initially he's running amok at the moment. Old Noah.
He's all right.
So I think it was maybe your first cafe that you the way you got into that cafe. Noah,
right.
Get out.
He's right.
The way the kind of way that you got into that cafe was. Like you didn't buy in, you kind of went in and
that was the second one, my other
second
brother.
One, okay, my other brother, yeah. So because I'm interested, I feel like you're pretty good at seeing opportunities arise, and so on. So I'm interested to kind of hear a little bit about that, but also how you see opportunities and kind of how you're viewing potentially right now markets and opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, so that's another one. I suppose seeing opportunities where others won't is obviously something that's really helped us as well. So with my other brother, I knocked on the door. I heard this cafe in Camberwell was struggling, and I lived around the corner. I grew up around the corner, so I knew the site really well, but it was a very poorly run venue. So I knocked on the door on a Friday night and offered a 70-year-old bloke and a 50-year-old his partner. I offered to help them, and they had a $750,000 debt. They bought the business for $2 million, and they had a $750,000 debt on the business, but it was losing money every week. It was probably losing $150,000 to $200,000 a year. And so I knocked on the door and I said, "Let me help you." So they then, long story short, they gave me 50% for. To take on half the liability of the debt. So I was 24, and so I signed on the debt. So 750, half 750. What's that? 375, is it? Is that right? 375. Sound right? Anyway, 375. So I signed over half the debt, and the way I looked at it was, I'm 24 years old. The bank's not going to give me 375 of commercial debt at 24 with my first business only started a year ago. So I signed on. So I took over the business. It was doing like $12,000 a week revenue, but losing a significant amount of money. And that business, I own 100% of it now. I bought those partners out about probably 3 years in. So I've had it 4 years in. And
they would have been happy.
I made them a fortune.
Yeah.
They were losing. They were losing so much money. They were so stressed. They were literally had to close the doors and liquidate it. So, like, I made them a lot of money, and they kicked back and did nothing. I did everything. And like, look, I love them. They're great guys. I still speak to them. And Bob's, bless him, he's nearly 80 now, and he's an absolute pain in my ass. Like, he's like a second dad, and and he'll always feel like he's been stitched up some, like he's one of those blokes.
Yeah.
But he knows deep down how much how hard I worked for him, and how much I turned the business around. I turned it around from losing 150, 200 grand a year to profiting, 700 grand a year. So it was very quickly, like it's and we've kept that to this day. It's one of the anchors sort of our portfolio. So, but yeah, so that was a real knock on the door, and putting myself out there to find that opportunity, and took some risk clearly, and took a risk that others wouldn't, So that's sort of how you progress.
Yeah, I mean that's quite an amazing story. What were some of the mistakes that they were making? Right, that like fundamentally. So what were some of the mistakes that you went in and potentially? I mean, obviously you knew they were struggling, but once you got in there, what were some of the mistakes they were making?
Oh, it was filthy for starters. Had cockroaches everywhere. That's not going to really help your win business, I reckon. So it was poorly branded. It was, for example, it was yellow and blue, old, really like word font branding. It had, very poor atmosphere. The food was terrible. Literally nothing was good about it, to be honest. It used to be a fantastic venue. So they bought it for $2 million when it was, doing big numbers. And then it was an institution, but they didn't evolve it, change it, and it got dirty, and staff were terrible. And so we just went in. Nothing, didn't reinvent the wheel. Just really solid, really simple things done well. Like that was really great coffee, consistently. Approachable menu, breakfast, lunch. Made sure the vibe was amazing. Great loud music, funky staff, making sure they present it well, and took pride in their, in what they wore. Just making sure that everyone, it was a considered environment.
That's customer experience, right?
Exactly. You've got to make sure the customer feels something the moment they walk in. And we always say internally, we want the customers to relive their youth. So we always play music from yesteryear to make them feel like they were. Make them remember, feel a memory of that song. And there's no doubt you guys would have a song that would be like, I remember that at Year 12 house party. And that's the best memories ever. We all want to be 18 again, or 17, whatever it is. So that's the sort of thing that we want to make a customer feel when they walk in the door. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. So this is, I guess, a bit more of a technical question that's been running on my mind just while we're sitting here, is more around how you look at cash flow potentially. So do you treat every location as its own product and purely gauge cash flow on just that?
Yeah, we do.
Gauge it individually, or
we do. Every entity, every venue we track that venue's cash flow. So yeah, we don't do the reporting as a whole. We do it every individual entity, every location, because you have to, because it's their own sort of staff, their own rents, their own. They've all got slightly different metrics, or slightly different overheads. And thankfully, right now, touch wood, every venue now in our portfolio is performing really well. Obviously, lockdown obviously hurts a lot for some of the venues, but out of lockdown, they perform really well. We made a decision to sell our Queensland store during about 6 months ago, purely because we couldn't get there, and we were so disconnected from our team over there, and it was a headache to run the business from afar without having the connection. It almost felt like it was a standalone one venue, which is hard to run. So, other than that, things are going well, but we have to. We definitely review all the numbers for each entity every week on its own.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess you would have to, right? Because it is its own entity.
Yep, exactly.
But you would use obviously the accumulative cash flow across the board to obviously fund the next and the next and the next.
Yes, so we do definitely. So our working capital across every bank account, because obviously there's bank accounts for every single entity, and certainly we might borrow money from an entity to help cash flow the next store or something and repay that back. Yeah, so we do. We definitely, it's all under sort of one. Yeah, our CFO manages all those accounts, and he does a great job. To be honest, I couldn't do that. It'd do my head in. And I don't know. And it's obviously, record keeping is so important when you're moving money around from entity to entity. There needs to be full audits done to make sure that everything balances. So,
and that's where you go offshore, right?
Yeah. So the data guys our data guys in the Philippines, they're CPA accountants. They're Australian tax law trained and all that. So
we got two as well. So they do a lot of our data tracking.
It's so important. Like, obviously, it's very tedious work. So, the optics of like having offshore staff can be bad because they're like, oh, why don't you support the Australian work and economy? But, Qantas, Foxtel, Apple, they all do it. So everyone does it. And the reason why, like, I spoke to people about this, and the way we word it is that it creates better opportunities for Australian staff. Like, because the stuff that they're doing, they do an amazing job, but the stuff they're doing is not the greatest, and their working economy over there. This is a great opportunity for them.
It really is, and that's what I think that can be a misconception. Is like,
they've got they're still third world. Like their economy is not. It's not Australia, so they love the opportunity. Whereas our staff, we got different people are more entitled in.
Especially right now during COVID as well. Like these opportunities for people overseas is.
No one wants to work at the moment because they're all sitting at home getting the $750. It's hard to find staff at the moment because it's you're making more money staying at home. $750 tax-free dollars. They're making more money. So many part-time staff are making more money than they ever had, and they're sitting at home. So I think that's a massive flaw that the federal government needs to sort out quick, smart, because we need to get our staff back working. So
hopefully not long.
Hopefully not long. Yeah.
And obviously along the way you guys made a decision to go vertical, right? So and that's where Inglewood's come in. Can you run us through, I guess, the psychology around that decision? Yeah.
So Corey Slater was had a small share in one of our old stores, Penta, and he was like, I want to start roasting, and I was like, oh, I can't really be bothered. And can't be bothered. I didn't know if I want to do it. I love coffee and very passionate about it, but I didn't know if I wanted to start that. And I'm so glad he came forward and said, let's do it, because it's our number one performing entity. It's been 100% year on year the last 3 years since it started, and during COVID it was unbelievable for us because no one stopped drinking coffee. Online went nuts. We tripled our online revenue in COVID, and what we did in a year, we're now doing in our sales. We're doing in 2 days. So stuff like that's been huge for us. So I'm so glad we're roasting. But the idea behind it was really that was our biggest invoice every week was coffee. So we basically it was the obvious vertical integration. There's great margins in coffee, and then obviously because of our network, we knew that we'd be able to start supplying. So we supply now 120 odd stores. It'd have to be one of the fastest growing roasteries in Australia. So really proud of what Inglewood and our team has achieved. We've got an amazing team, very passionate staff. All the way to Willie Tao, our Q grader who does all our quality control. He's been absolutely amazing. All of our packers, like the packing staff, have a tough job, and the delivery drivers. It's not, it's hard work, and we've got an amazing team there. So proud of our Inglewood crew, but it was the most obvious progression, but it wasn't so obvious for me at the time, and I'm so glad we did it. I know we didn't do it earlier, but I'm really, really grateful that we're roasting and we're doing it now because it's been.
Looks amazing. It looks like an amazing operation, I must say.
It's cool. It's really fun. It's a really great place, and we just recently moved our headquarters from Coburg North to Mount Waverley, which is awesome, much bigger site, and our whole headquarters now, Only Hospitality Group and Inglewood are under one roof, which is really efficient.
Yeah, and I think it seems like the natural progression, right? Like going vertical. All the top companies in the world do it. Because it not only is another revenue stream, but it's a great way to decrease costs and improve margins.
100%, yeah. I mean, obviously it comes with more headaches, but it definitely makes your cost base much lower if you're buying the coffee in green. And, roasting it's hard work and it's tough, and to get a good result, you need to have the meticulous operators. But, it's been a fantastic move for the business. Yep.
Is there a story behind the name?
Inglewood, yeah, there is. So I love LA, and I love the character of all the little suburbs of LA, and it's all sort of Inglewood's an underdog suburb in LA, and I feel like we were a bit of an underdog. So we were pretty not late to market, but I mean there was a lot of roasters around when we were coming through. So we just love the vibe of it. We love the vibe of Inglewood, and I just felt like, I don't know, it resonated in a weird way. Not saying that we're ghetto and gangster, but like, that's not us. But they've got these, there's obviously a bit of crime in Inglewood in LA, but I don't know. Corey, my partner in Inglewood, he's got an American background, Yeah, there's look, like you go down little pockets, but yeah, that's sort of the fundamental of it. We just like the vibe of it, and we just felt like it branded well, and there was and the way that the brand evolved around it was really cool. And we've got the front of our single origins, it's different photos of LA, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So it's worked out well.
Yeah. Last question, and then we're going to dive into quick fire, which is just short, sharp answers.
Yeah, cool.
Kind of certain questions. But is there any chance of Inglewood going international? Or?
Oh, definitely, absolutely. We are trying to take our business as far as we can go, and there's obviously there's so much out of your control as soon as you dispatch coffee using third-party logistics, but we're definitely going to work towards it. That's for sure. And we're not the first people to do it. There's so many coffee brands international, but yeah, definitely. We definitely want to. We've got big plans and big dreams and goals, and yeah, very keen to see where it takes us.
I'm excited to watch it unveil as well.
Yeah, it should be good.
All right, so the next segment and this is something we do at the end of every podcast, is quick fire. So
yeah, cool.
it's just questions that we think are going to offer, short, sharp answers that are going to, well, not short, sharp, 1 to 2 minute, and we can build conversation around it, but they're answers that are really going to offer a lot of value to the listener.
Okay.
If I can get through it with this tacker getting at me. So question 1 is, what's the most important factor to scaling a business and why?
Definitely having people in position to manage different things. So a person in finance, making sure that they're across everything, giving you great advice and counsel on those matters. Obviously, yeah. So people in the areas that matter: human resource, accounting, and project management, I think are really important. And obviously, making sure you've got a business that is profitable, or if it's not profitable, making sure you've got the exit strategy, or what's the big picture, and having great reporting metrics and reporting formulas. That's really important. You can't scale without that.
Awesome. What advice would you give to someone about to start a business?
Obviously, everyone says work hard, but it's true. Like, if you're starting a business because you think the lifestyle is going to be good, it's just the wrong. Your head is completely. It's not the right motivation. Like, it can't be. Of course, I'm a lifestyle-driven person, but that wasn't why I started business. I started business because I was passionate about what I was selling, which is coffee and breakfast, lunch. Really passionate about people and hospitality. I love welcoming people and creating great environments. So you have to make sure that the motives are right, and if it's not, you've got to really go deep. It can't just be, I'm going to kick back and make millions. It's going to be easy. It's just not. It's not how it works. And
if only, right?
Exactly. Like, so so as I said before, like, I cleaned the toilets for 2 years every day, or maybe not 2 years, but like a year at least. Because I couldn't afford to have staff help me close. Like, that's 2 hours of closing time to clean. I couldn't afford that. So ask yourself, will you do that? Will you clean your toilets if you open a cafe every day and be there open to close every day until it's profitable enough to have someone do your role? And if you're not willing to do that, then don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great point. I think it's ebbs and flows, right? There's going to be times where you do have the lifestyle, and then the next week it can literally all be taken away from you from things going wrong.
Yeah, and some people get lucky. Some people start a business and it's like bang, and it's like, and good luck to them. That's amazing. But if you're planning for that to happen, you're probably we go awesome. It's just not the real world. And it happens, no doubt. Like, people have those stroke of luck, and maybe that's because they have got an amazing business model, which is awesome. But yeah, I just think that you've got to be willing to really get stuck
grind.
Yeah, grind. You got to grind, and you got to be there until the moment happens when you can, handball.
I often think business is a game of, like, who can withstand the pain the longest. Definitely. At times, right? Like, it's not to say all of it is grind and pain, but it's like, the reality is like a lot of what you do is just putting out fires continuously.
Oh, that's right.
And it's like, how resilient are you? And I think, like, that's why, most businesses don't make it past the 5-year mark, right? And I think it's a good point.
Resilience is the number. That's the word. Are you resilient enough to get through all those hard days, and people counting on you? And again, I saw in a podcast recently, they said, "Are you a control freak? to the person. And it was Les Serrato against Victoria, and just really resonated with me. I'm not a control freak, but they're like, are you like, do you switch off kind of thing? And it's like, I don't switch off. And my wife, Chrissy Lee, she's very extremely hardworking, but she knows how to switch off, and I can't. But like, as Les Serrato said, we wear it as a badge of honor. Like, because when shit hits the fan, I'm the first person that gets called. What do we do with this? And then people go, just switch off. Like, it's too late. Like, stop it. But then if something happens late at night, I'm the one who gets called. So it's like, you can't have it both ways. If you want me to be the person who's always wants me, if you want me to be the person that's always there, then let me be on all the time. And if I want to be on all the time, that's my decision. But I don't know how I got talking at this, but I think it's important to have that resilience and also understand that people have different quirks. And one of my quirks is I struggle to switch off. So,
Oh, you're not the only one.
Yeah, that's it. But it's also lifestyle as well. Like, I enjoy that life. I enjoy it. Like, it's fun for me too. Like, I really enjoy. We used to enjoy, winning games of football. Now, like winning. You like winning on some deals and winning on great outcomes in the business. So, that's my sport now, and that's my lifestyle, and I really enjoy it. Yeah, I need to switch off, and sometimes I get real bad anxiety and have really bad stresses. So I do need to balance it a bit, but I know, I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Yeah,
so.
And I think that's the key, right? It's like, if you love it, let it kill you kind of thing. It's kind of like, I really think of it like that. It's like,
yeah, definitely.
If I'm enjoying myself, that's really what matters.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're someone who has obviously achieved a lot. Right?
Yep.
But I know that obviously you haven't...
I shouldn't say yep. Sorry, I didn't mean that. I was just reading the question trying to... I haven't achieved anywhere near what I want to achieve. So
that's the point, right?
Yeah,
like, you're someone who's achieved a lot, and to people who listen to this podcast, you are someone who has. But I guess I want to know what's your largest motivator to continue?
Love giving up. Love seeing staff grow, develop, seeing their income, progress. That's amazing. I love that, and that's really, I'm a bit of a Justin Bieber fan. So, and I watched his. I'm proud of it too. I don't care. I'm OG.
He's a believer.
I'm an OG believer. I'm an OG believer, and I've been to 2 of his concerts. I've been a big fan of him. I like his music, and I just think he's an awesome entertainer.
Yeah.
But he said I watched his Our World documentary, and he said being an entertainer can be very self-serving. All these people screaming for him, and he's a good-looking guy. He's got awesome swag, and he would have had girls falling off him and people latching onto him, and he admits that he went through a bad stage and all that. But he said it's very self-serving. Seeing people scream for you, and he goes, sometimes you just need to go back to the why. Why is he doing it? And he does it because he loves singing, and he loves entertaining, and he loves dancing, obviously, and with his crew. And you see in his doco that he's just really in love with everyone he works with, and that's how I feel about where I work. I really feel like I love everyone who I work with, and I'm grateful I get to choose who I work with in a way, But I'm so grateful for the people who are around me, and one of my biggest motivators to continue to grow is because I want to see everyone succeed and develop these better lifestyles, and we want to work like others won't to live like others can't. And that's what sort of our motivator is, and keep developing amazing spaces, amazing venues, and also invest in cool stuff and different things and stuff that challenges us and learn. And of course, money's money is a byproduct of that success, But I don't think about the money as my motivator. I think about I feel like it's about winning kind of thing, and getting that that buzz after something goes well. That's probably the motivator.
It's very easy. It's like, what you said around staff and people and enjoyment. It's very easy to get caught up when you're growing in the money, in the numbers, that, and kind of focus on that. And a lot of the time, that's obviously when you lose that enjoyment factor of it. You start to behave in different ways, and you kind of lose yourself a little bit, which
of course
I can definitely talk to. But I think you're definitely right when you just bring it back to the fundamentals of
why you're doing it.
Why are we doing this? What do we want to see? What kind of experiences are we trying to create, and so on. It kind of simplifies things in a way.
Definitely.
Cool. So your description of a great leader.
someone who is there in the trenches with you, and someone who's a good delegator, someone who empowers others, a spirit lifter, someone who doesn't try to take credit for everything. And sometimes you want to take, like, sometimes you come up with an idea and you feel like, you want to take credit for it, but it's nearly more important that you go, well done. And even like that person might have taken over it from the initial idea, but making sure that you lift someone else up and give them the credit they deserve. And being approachable is obviously really important. Building rapport. Someone who cares about relationships is a good leader. Like, I feel like people who just come in and just, like, have blinkers on, and sometimes we are guilty of that, but that's because people are stressed and have things going on in their mind. But I think just a balanced person and ultimately a good person, and a good leader needs to be able to make decisions, the hard decisions, ones that aren't always, the flavour of it, aren't always liked. But sometimes if you're a leader, if you know that you're making the decision for the greater good, then you've just got to sort of be comfortable with that. But yeah, I think they're sort of some of the characteristics of a good leader, and something that I try. Obviously, some of the characteristics that I try to sort of live by every day.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a few really great leaders on the show, and it seems to be a common point. But I mean,
it seems obvious, doesn't it? But
it's a lot harder in practice.
It's a lot harder in practice. Exactly.
It's so much harder in practice. Like, I think that's that's kind of the one thing you're working at as a leader, because the technician in you, right? You would have had this when you very first started, right? It's kind of like the technician in you says perfection. The technician in you says, it should be done this way. But I think, like the things you just mentioned is the journey of going the other way. Yeah, it's counterintuitive, I suppose. If you start, as you said, when you're starting a business, you want to make sure everything's perfect, but then it comes to a point where you have to go, okay, 90% rule kind of thing. You don't have a 90% rule to grow. You can't accept. No one can be perfect. Yeah. So. Amazing. Not much needs to be added to that.
Very good. How did we go? Thank you for having me.
We nailed it.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
I just want to say a massive thank you to you for your time. You obviously got a lot going on, so we're really appreciative here to have you on and for you to be able to share your wisdom with our audience. No, my pleasure. It's been great, and I like talking, and I love, at the end of the day, we all need. It's good to have advice from all people, and if there's anything that I said that someone can take with them in some of the decisions they're about to make or in their business life, then we'll think that's it's been a successfly conversation. So. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks, John, for putting it together. Thanks to all the listeners as well. Again, we're getting so much support at the moment, and I'm just super appreciative of it. So thank you to everyone for tuning in. And